morning, everybody. It is I, the Nomad, coming to you live from the wastelands of the internet to bring you the news of the week. As I, well, the news that I'm interested in. Let's leave it at that, shall we? Let's get started. Let's get started right away. Let's start off right now with the Ukrainian war. As you can see, the battling is intensifying. It does look and appear that there are areas of hope, all right, specifically down here for the Ukrainians and Ukrainian operations. It's getting cooler out now. We are now into October, and so the 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 war is getting ready to enter the winter phase. All right, and the winter offensives. Russia is known for winter offensives. It will be interesting to see how long and how well Ukraine can survive this next offensive that's coming up. Right, as you can see, there are a lot of clashes along this area here, which is something we've been paying attention to for a while now, as the Russians attempt to try and solidify their holds of these major industrial areas here and obviously up here. Um, they have clashes all along the northern area of this front, which is heated up slowly. Um, it is now looking like there's a possible push toward Kharkiv. Okay, we will see um, whether or not that actually takes place and how far that can actually go. If that's going to be their new attempt at access. Down below in the Kherson area, same kind of stuff. A little bit more activity down here in near Zaporizhzhia. All right, as the Russians try and solidify uh, uh, operations in this area here to see if they can get more territory. Right. As far as the Ukrainians go, they are attacking with drones to try and get an oil facility. Um, Now, this is a good ways away from the front, as you can tell. All right, it's a good 400 kilometers away. And the question then, you know, not even 400 kilometers, you're looking probably around 400 miles easily along that area to where you're dealing with this. Could be closer to 1,000. These refineries are obviously very susceptible to attacks for one main reason, right? And that is you're dealing with oil. Oil likes to light on fire. So how are the Ukrainians actually doing this? Are they using missiles, all right, fired from Ukrainian territory, or are they using UAVs from this territory? I seriously doubt that. I think that what they have are operatives inside of Russia. All right, there are plenty of Russians who side with the Ukrainians as far as what's going on. What does it actually mean? Now I know people are like concerned about this little spot here. This was just a readiness exercise. There was no actual combat. Okay, that took place here. That would open up a new front if Belarus decides to actually join Russia in their conflict with the Ukrainians. All right, it would be a serious escalation. And of course, this is something that Poland is very nervous about. I'm sorry, you probably didn't see that. I'm talking about this area here. All right, near Belarus. But this was just an exercise. Okay. Uh, Obviously, the 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 Poles are very concerned about this. This area here, though, to be honest, used to be under Poland. In fact, at one point, Poland had control over all this area. Regardless, the war is continuing. It's escalating. Um, it's unfortunate. People are still dying. All right. Hopefully, things will get better. On the other front, what you have here is the ceasefire deal with Israel. The pro-Palestinian protest here in London, right? Chant "Death to the IDF," all right, as they march through London, while infiltrators, all right, from the pro-Israeli demonstrators were arrested by the police. A, a small group of people from Our Fight, a pro-Israeli organization that describes itself as mostly made up of non-Jewish Brits, were seen facing off with protesters while holding signs that said, "We stand with Britain's Jews." The Met Police made a small number of arrests after breaking up a scuffle between the two groups. Officers were quickly on the scene and were seen escorting counter protesters away, some bedecked with the Union flag. Officers have also thrown a ring of steel around hundreds of pro Israeli supporters near the Waterloo Bridge. The group was heard shouting "losers" to a man speaking through a megaphone, declared pro-Palestinian protesters animals. Meanwhile, pro-Palestinian protesters were heard chanting "Death, death to the IDF" and "From the river to the sea, Palestine will be free." It is understood that the arrests have now been made at both protests, but only the pro-Israeli protesters. The pro-Palestinian march, which was attended by former Labor leader Jeremy Corbyn, made its way through central London one day after a ceasefire agreement between Israel and Hamas came into effect. It marks the 32nd national demonstration in support of Palestine since October 2023, according to an organizer, Palestine Solidarity Campaign, with, with protesters setting off from embankment, all right, on at midday for the march that ended in a rally at Whitehall. Okay, you're taken over. If you can't get rid of these guys, you've been taken over. This is a disgrace. Okay? It's a disgrace here in the United States when it happens. It's a disgrace anywhere. These people are supporting butchers, people who want to bash the heads of toddlers, all right, in and cave them in and butcher them and cut their heads off. I'm not exaggerating this, and I'm not going to sugarcoat it either. This is who the pro Palestinian protesters are supporting. This is who they are protecting. This is who they are. You better start believing what they say. When they tell you what they are about, you better start believing what they're about. There is no peace here. There is no peace. I don't understand why people can't don't get what you're dealing with these protesters. There's a ceasefire deal. Some some hostages, specifically the American that was held hostage, has been released by Hamas. In order for the ceasefire to hold, Hamas has to give up all of their hostages. And so far, the ceasefire seems to be holding, but it won't. Now, I pray that it does. I pray that maybe they've had enough, and that they're now going to be working toward peace, and the biggest butchers are no longer going to be in charge. But I don't have a lot of hope for them. I'm somewhat hopeless. Okay, if this ceasefire holds, then maybe hope will return. I pray that I'm wrong. I pray that God rebukes me for my comments because nothing's impossible for him. But I'm going to tell you who these butchers are. And it's not an anomaly, folks. These are the followers of Moloch. These are the followers of Baal. They haven't changed. The Palestinians have not changed culturally since even before Islam. They are the same people who have no problem sacrificing children, all right, and throwing them into burning pyres. Human sacrifice is well known in this region, and it continues. They haven't changed, at least not that I can tell. You're letting your children starve to death. I have pointed this out time and time and time again that there is no reason for these children to be starving to death unless these people are intentionally starving and allowing their children to starve to death. It's not a joke. I'm not going to pull punches here. These people support and hide these terrorist thugs, these people who intentionally target toddlers because they don't want to actually go after real military targets. They're too terrified of that. They'll know they'll die there in the Great Jihad. So what they do instead of going for the Great Jihad, they go after, you know, babies in their cribs. And the people of this region support it. The people, the Palestinian, oh, the poor Palestinians, they cheer it on. Blessed are the peacemakers. And may God be correct and keep these people safe. All right. But Lord, I don't think that there's any other way of dealing with these people aside from sitting there saying, you know what, enough's enough. The ceasefire is holding. Hopefully it'll continue. Qatar facility at U.S. Air Base in Idaho sparks controversy. MAGA influencers criticized a training agreement announced by Defense Secretary Hegseth. A Friday announcement by Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth about a new training arrangement with Qatar's Air Force has sparked a backlash from President Trump supporters, prompting him to issue a clarification later in the day. During a visit by Qatar's defense minister, Hegseth announced a new facility that would be built at the Mountain Home Air Force Base in Elmore County, Idaho, to host and train Qatari pilots on U.S. made F 15s. We should not be giving F 15s to anyone. Just a personal opinion. You want to give F 16s? Fine. We should not be handing out F 15s. Qatar, a Persian Gulf nation with little airspace of its own, has long cultivated ties with U.S. military. The Al Diyad Air Base serves as a platform for American warplanes in the Middle East and hosts U.S. Air's War Command Center for the region. Qatar also served as an important hub where the U.S. pulled out of when the U.S. pulled out of Afghanistan. It was a huge hub, right? Qatar is a small little postage stamp sized country on the Persian Gulf. Okay, period. All right, and I say postage stamp because it's a postage stamp. It's not very big. Why does it exist? Why isn't it part of Saudi Arabia? It's totally surrounds Qatar. There's only one reason, and that is unlike the rest of Saudi Arabia, the tribe that was in control of that area was Shia Muslim, not Sunni. They have significant ties to Iran. Understand this. We do have bases there. I have been to Qatar, okay, in my days in the military. Do I worry about this agreement? Not really, to be honest, right? Even with F-15s, but the we can train these people however we want. The problem is they're never going to utilize. In order to effectively utilize U.S. equipment, you have to use the U.S. philosophy and the U.S. abilities, and they don't have that. Now, the F-15s are significant platforms. Okay, they are significant. They are far better. They're a far better warplane than an F-16. Okay, but they're expensive. They're much harder to maintain. Iran found that out. The F-14s and the F-15s that we had given to Iran, okay, which basically they're gone now, were impossible to maintain without the U.S. providing them support. They're impossible to maintain. They're much more maintenance heavy air platform than an F-16. This is why F-16s are so popular, right, in comparison to the F-15. But the F-15's capabilities far exceed an F-16's, and I'm not going to go into them. You can look them up. You can look up the specifics of this. I would point out, however, that F-15s are still in regular U.S. service. Just pointing that out. Whereas F-16s have been relegated to the National Guard. Over to Japan. Summers lengthened by 3 weeks over 42 years, say researchers. Really? Really? Japanese summers have lengthened by about 3 weeks over 42 years from 1982 to 2023, a university research group said Saturday. The May University group said that due to climate change, the number of days classified as summer has increased each year, while the length of winter has remained relatively unchanged. The, the average durations of spring and fall have shortened. This group cited the rise in sea surface temperatures due to global warming as a main factor, warning that the trend toward longer summers and winters will intensify if warming continues. Winters will get worse, summers will get worse. We won't have a spring or a fall. All right. First of all, before I go into this, I don't believe in man-made global warming. Okay, I do believe in climate change, mainly because the climate has always changed. For all those people who think that okay, well, there's going to be a global, there's going to be a a greenhouse effect. It's going to sterilize the Earth, just like what's happened to our sister planet, Venus. You don't know what you're talking about. Will we eventually go into a ice age? Yeah, eventually. Eventually, we will be going into an ice age. Right? When will that be? I'll be honest with you. I don't know. Okay, I don't know when an ice age will actually take place. There will be one. Could be 10,000 years from now. Could be 100,000 years from now. Okay, I don't know. I do know that nobody's serious about it. Nobody's serious about man-made global warming. Oh, you don't know what you're talking about, no man. You don't know what you're talking about. Okay, let me show you an example. Global energy think tank praises China's world-leading role in clean energy. China continues to lead the world in renewable energy generation and clean technology, said several recent reports released by the global energy think tank Ember. China met all of its power demand growth for the first half of 2025 through clean energy generation while cutting fossil fuel generation and emissions, according to Ember. All right, Global Electricity's mid-year insights. No, it hasn't. Okay, and this is the problem. The largest producer of greenhouse gases, all right, and non-clean energy is China. Period. And yet this global think tank comes back and goes, China's doing its job. China's doing this. Remaining the clear frontrunner in global clean energy, China accounted for 55% of the global rise in solar generation and 82% rise in wind generation, said the report. That's because, especially in wind generation, everyone else has said, enough's enough, this shit don't work. Nobody is reconstructing massive wind farms anymore. Now, China does have, because of its climate in certain areas, areas where it can expand solar generation dramatically, just like we could in the United States, to be honest. But there's a limit to it. There's a limit to it. See, and then they point out another report from Ember has shown that China's export of clean technologies reached a record 20 billion US dollars in August, marking a new high. It also pointed out the rapid adoption of clean technologies in China. Electric vehicles accounted for 52% of new car sales in August, while China installed more than twice as many solar panels as the rest of the world combined in the first half year. That's because the solar panels, which they used to sell to the rest of the world, aren't being purchased by the rest of the world. But you're not serious. The biggest polluter on the planet is China. And yet they get praised for this. You can't tell me this group, Ember, cares about the climate. If you're singing China's praises, now granted, this was Xinhao News, but if you're going to sing China's praises, you're not serious about the climate, the man-made global warming. You're not. You're simply not serious. Fake videos of dead celebrities are going viral. Many of their families are horrified. From the Washington Post. Who wrote this? Let's see. Tatum Hunter and Drew Harwell. Ilyas Shabazz didn't want to look at the AI generated videos of her father, Malcolm X. The seemingly realistic clips made by OpenAI's new video maker Sora 2 show the legendary civil rights activist making crude jokes, wrestling with Martin Luther King Jr., and talking about defecating on him. Sora's speed and uncanny realism has helped rocket the app to the top of the downloaded charts and videos. Reanimating the dead have been among the most viral clips. Sora produced videos of Michael Jackson, Elvis Presley, and Amy Winehouse have flooded social media platforms, with many viewers saying they struggle to tell whether the videos are real or fake. Some clips played for laughs, such as the video of Mr. Rogers' Neighborhood host Fred Rogers writing a rap song with hip hop artist Tupac Shakur. All right. Others have leaned into darker themes. One video shows police body cam footage of Whitney Houston looking intoxicated. In some clips, King makes monkey noises during his I Have a Dream speech. Basketball player Kobe Bryant flies aboard a helicopter mirroring the crash that killed him and his daughter in 2020. JFK makes a joke about the recent killing of right wing influencer Charlie Kirk. Okay, I understand these people and how upset their families are because it is a real thing, but it's also reality. Okay, it's also reality now. AI is now reality. They're going to see this kind of stuff. It's out there. For better or for worse, it exists. And yes, there are jackasses that are going to do this shit. The problem is the media because you can't trust them to tell you and truly look for the truth. That's the sad part. It truly is. Now, is most of this stuff juvenile? Yes, most of it's juvenile. But if you want government control of all this stuff, folks, it won't be juvenile anymore. It'll be directed. You've been warned. You have been warned. Officials investigate a blast at a Tennessee explosives plant that left 18 missing and feared dead. Officials were investigating a blast that leveled the explosive plant in rural Tennessee as families of 18 people missing and feared dead waited anxiously Saturday for answers. The explosion Friday morning at the Accurate Energetic Systems, which supplies and researches explosives for the military, scattered debris over half a mile area and was felt by residents more than 15 miles away, said the Humphreys County Sheriff Chris Davies. Aerial footage showed the company's hilltop location smoldering and smoky Friday, with just a mass of twisted metal, burned out shells of cars, and an array of debris left behind. Davis, who described it as one of the worst scenes he's ever seen, said multiple people were killed, but he declined to say how many, referring to the 18 missing as souls. All right, because officials were still speaking to the families. What we read right now is we need our communities to come together and to understand that we've lost a lot of people, he said. Signs near the site ask for prayers for the family. This plant is completely gone. You can see. You can see how there's very little of this area left. All right. Um, as you go through here, you can see the families as they are now stuck with, oh my goodness, my family's gone. Okay, family members are gone. Prayers for them, folks. They're gonna need it. Now, hopefully, all right, this tragedy was an accident. Okay, we can all hope for that. We haven't had a blast like this at an explosive plant in a long time. They do happen from time to time. They're a consequence of these things. These tragedies do exist, but they seem to come in waves, and hopefully that won't continue with this one. From Politico, Gregory Severnetsky. Mike Johnson, the speaker on Friday, slammed the No Kings protest scheduled to take place at the National Mall next week, describing the planned protest as the Hate America rally that would draw the pro-Hamas wing and Antifa people. Ding, 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 ding. His characterizations, however, drew condemnation from some Democrats who defended the protest movement. Yeah, the Antifa and Hamas wing of the Democrat Party. All right. This is really a surprise here, right? That these people are like this. John Favreau, one of Crook's co-founders, criticized Elmer and Johnson on social media. Elmer being a Republican, emphasizing that the No King protest was peaceful with American flags everywhere. Yeah, those and a bunch of non-American flags too were everywhere, weren't they? And there's going to be a bunch of non-American flags the next one. It's hilarious. They didn't even tell you which Democrats in this whole article. They don't even tell you which Democrats, all right, lawmakers, all right, all right, defended the protest movement. Which ones were they? Which Democrat lawmakers were it? Did any of them defend it? Or did you just go, well, there's some Democrats who defend it? Yeah, the freaking radical Antifa wing of the party. They bring out some people. Oh, well, we're not going to tell you, because we all know what this is about. Transportation Secretary Sean Duffy warns air traffic controllers who called out sick during the shutdown could be fired. Ding, 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 ding. Even though the U.S. has a stark shortage of air traffic controllers, ones who called in sick instead of working without a paycheck during the federal government shutdown risk being fired, the U.S. Transportation Secretary warned. The Transportation Secretary Sean Duffy said this week he understands the controller's frustrations and worries, but during an appearance on Thursday, all right, he said on Fox Business, he said that calling in sick, they are causing major disruption in air traffic, and it won't be tolerated. These are the same idiots that went on strike and dared Reagan to do something, and he fired them all. And they haven't learned their lesson. They're all a bunch of leftist Marxists. They hadn't even missed a paycheck, and they started playing this game. None of these people have missed a paycheck yet. Oh, it's coming. I agree. It's coming. But none of them have missed a paycheck and they called out sick. Because they're part of the Democrat activist wing. That's more important to them than doing their job and keeping people safe. I would fire them all now. And I'm dead serious. If you want to be an activist, go be an activist. We're not going to have activists in charge of air traffic control. I would just put that out there. It's that simple. You want to be an activist, you no longer need to be an air traffic controller because you can't be trusted. You put your these people here put their activism ahead of the ahead of the safety of the people that they're supposed to be taking care of. They put their activism ahead of that. Let them go work somewhere else. Dairy Queen Blizzard helped end an armed standoff in Washington state. The unmatched potency of Dairy Queen Blizzard was seen again this week when the frozen delicacy helped end an armed standoff between Washington police and an arson suspect. According to investigators, Elijah Reagan, 40, set fire Sunday night to his Pullman apartment by using a mortar to shoot fireworks into the ceiling. The resulting blaze damaged 8 apartments and resulted in the evacuation of dozens of residents. As detailed in the court records, Reagan's estranged wife told cops that he had called her to say, "I bombed my apartment," and that bad people were after him. Seen at the right, Reagan, who was smoking methamphetamine, led police on a high-speed chase before his 2012 Kia Sedona was disabled by spike strips. Reagan had a shotgun, bottle rockets, fire logs, lighter fluid in his vehicle. The armed standoff followed, with police seeking to arrange Reagan's surrender. His blizzard demand emerged in those negotiations. Police say Mr. Reagan requested a meal from Dairy Queen as a condition of surrender. All right, cops purchased a blizzard and a hamburger from Dairy Queen and brought the food to the scene on the U.S. Highway 195. The child was delivered to Reagan's car via a tactical robot. 4 hours after the fire started, Reagan, whose auto had been boxed in by armored vehicles, surrendered. He was booked into jail on felony arson and eluding charges. He's being held on $250,000 bond in advance of his arraignment tomorrow. Police did not say what flavor of blizzard was employed by law enforcement. Positive story in this sense. All right, but obviously somebody who had lost his ever-loving mind. Speaking of somebody who has lost their ever-loving mind, is Brit okay? Britney Spears sparks concern as she dances in sparkly lingerie with massive bruises and a broken leg. White bandages was wrapped around her right thigh as she moved to music. Britney Spears has sparked concerns as she dances in lingerie with a broken leg. She took to Instagram and posted a clip of her dancing in a pink glittery lingerie with a feathery skirt inside of her home. All right, the massive bruise could be seen on her wrist as well as smaller bruising on her other arm and the rest of her body. The white bandage wrapped around her knee as she slowly moved to the music. She captioned, "My boys had to leave and go back to Maui. This is the way I express myself and pray through art. Father who art in heaven, I'm not here for concern or pity. I just want to be a good woman and be better and do wonderful and I do have wonderful support. So I have a brilliant day." A lot of people went out of their way to end her conservacy by her father, saying that her father was just a grifter. And her father after a while of being constantly targeted as the bad guy, couldn't handle it anymore and said, "Fine, I'm just going to step away from all of this." And he's done it. Hopefully, Brittany gets better. But obviously, she is struggling. She doesn't even realize, I don't think, that this video wasn't normal. And more's the pity. More's the pity. Investigation ongoing after a House of South Carolina judge who criticized by the Trump administration burns down. Police are investigating a fire that burned down the house of the South Carolina Circuit Court Judge Diane Goldstein, who reportedly received death threats for weeks related to her work. At this time, there's no evidence to indicate that the fire was intentionally set, said the South Carolina Law Enforcement Division SLED. I kind of like that. All right. Chief Mark Neal, or Keel, right, told Time in a statement on Monday, noting that the investigation into the house fire in Edisto Beach is active and ongoing. I urge our citizens and elected officials and members of the press to exercise good judgment and not share information that has not been verified, Keel said. The fire began around 11:30 a.m. Eastern Time on Saturday, sources told local news outlet FITS News. Goldstein reportedly not at home at the time of the fire, but at least three members of her family, including her husband, former Democrat Senator Arnold Goldstein, and their son, have been hospitalized with serious injuries. According to the St. Paul's Fire District, which responded to the scene, the occupants had to be rescued via kayak. South Carolina Chief Justice John Kitteridge told FITS News on Saturday that the fire appeared to have been caused by an explosion. Keel, however, said on Monday that SLED agents have preliminarily found there is no evidence to support a pre-fire explosion. He included no other details. The 69-year-old judge has received death threats in the weeks leading up to the fire, multiple sources told FITS News. Last month, Goldstein temporarily blocked the state's election commission from releasing its voter files to the Department of Justice, a decision that was openly criticized by Assistant Attorney General for Civil Rights Harmet Dillon and later reversed by the state Supreme Court. The DOJ had sought the information, including names, addresses, driver's license numbers, and social security numbers of over 3 million registered voters as part of Donald Trump's executive order restricting non citizens from registering to vote. Non citizens are already not allowed to vote, all right, in federal and state elections. Gee, they're not supposed to be allowed to vote. Then why are they being allowed to register to vote? The Trump administration has sought to drastically reshape the election system in the name of election integrity by requesting, and in some cases suing, states for voter registration data to compile a comprehensive centralized database. The administration has sought data from more than 30 states and has considered pursuing criminal investigations into state election officials. Critics have argued that the administration's efforts are an attempt at disenfranchising voters from marginalized communities and overstepping states' constitutional authority to control election procedures. The administration has also increasingly vilified the judiciary, blasting judges. Don't you love this? They keep going in there, but they won't tell you exactly what the administration said about this specific judge. Trump said. But it doesn't stop them from No, they don't really have any evidence of anything, but it didn't stop New York Representative Daniel Goldman, who acted as the lead counsel for in the first impeachment of Trump. Someone today committed an arson on a judge's home, severely injuring her husband and son. Will Trump speak out against the extreme right that did this? We don't know what caused this, and in fact, they haven't said anything as to what's caused this. Okay. Um, Now, for people who don't know, the injuries sustained by the the father and the son are a direct result of how they escaped the house. They actually had to jump from a an upper story window and broke some bones when they landed. All right, in an attempt to get out of the house, which was on fire. All right, could this been arson? Definitely. It's very possible. Could it have just been something else? Who knows? Could it have been an accident? We'll wait. We'll have to wait and see. If it is arson, I hope they catch the guy and put him in jail. Throw away the key. If he's a frickin' MAGA supporter, so be it. Don't care. These criminals, these deranged individuals, need to be gotten rid of. Now, the vast majority of them live on the left. Oh man, how could you make that statement? It's real easy. Okay. The attempt to normalize, all right, deranged individual and deranged actions is on the left. Anybody who sits there and tells you that a trans person is mentally stable is out of their mind. They're people who are denying their own reality, meaning the body of their reality. They're denying reality. And if you can't face the reality of who you are, and you have a party that's all cheering it on, who are trying to take 8-year-olds, right, and giving them surgery, life-changing surgery, yeah, there are more deranged individuals on the left because their actions are promoted by the Democrats. Just pointed out. Their derangement is promoted as normal. From Natalie Drews, Ken Thomas, and Annie Linsky. White House starts mass layoffs of government workers. Good. The White House said Friday it has begun conducting mass layoffs of federal employees in response to the government shutdown, an unprecedented step that follows through on weeks of threats meant to increase pressure on Democrats. The risks have begun, White House Office of Management and Budget Director Russell Vought posted on X using an abbreviation for the reductions in force. The OMB official characterized the reentrenchment as substantial, and a White House official said it would affect thousands of federal workers. It doesn't need to affect thousands, it needs to affect not tens of thousands, it needs to affect hundreds of thousands of federal workers because there are too many. Okay? We're not talking about the military. The number one employer in the United States is the U.S. federal government. That never should be the case. That never should be the case. And I'm not talking about adding the military. This is sans military. There's no need for this many workers in the federal government, especially in agencies that are duplicated throughout every state in the union. That's the reality. These people need to find new jobs. It will be a lot, and it will be the Democrat oriented. President Trump said in the Oval Office. They started this thing. There needs to be a purge of these activists. from the federal government because they don't care about their jobs. They'd rather be activists. From removing keyboards with a W on them to frickin' which happened back in the Bush administration that everybody kept trying to deny when it was all real. These people rather be activists than civil servants of the people. More than 4,000 employees at agencies across the federal government are issued layoff notices, according to a filing late Friday by the administration in San Francisco federal court. Layoffs hit the Department of Health and Human Services, Energy, Homeland Security, Education, Treasury, Commerce, Housing, and Urban Development. You also need to include Defense Department or Department of War. The move marks a major escalation in Trump's effort. Now, one of the ones I didn't see on this. Where's the EPA? The move marks a major escalation in Trump's effort to force a resolution in the partisan standoff on Capitol Hill and test the limits of his executive power to trim the federal workforce. Congress has been at a standstill since the shutdown started on October 1st, and many federal workers and military service members are set to miss their first full paychecks next week. More than 1,100 workers in HHS across several divisions received reduction in force notices on Friday. Some of the people who lost their jobs were deemed at odds with the Trump administration's Make America Healthy Again agenda. Gee, civil servants being fired for refusing to obey their elected officials. What a surprise! Hundreds of thousands of government workers are currently furloughed, while others deemed essential are working without pay. But layoffs hadn't been part of the past shutdowns, and Democrats said that the White House has no reason to fire employees while also questioning their legality. They have every reason. You guys have put activists who are activists not doing their job. Reductions of force are not a new power these bozos get in a shutdown, said Senator Patty Murray. All right, the top Democrat on the Appropriations Committee and social media. We can't be intimidated by these crooks. Who's stealing? Who's stealing? What money, what American money has been stolen? You see, these people are delusional. Patty Murphy, all right, is an idiot. Patty Murray, excuse me. I said Murphy. I meant Murray. She's part of the problem. The DNC, they're delusional. Mainstream media. Barry Weiss demands how do you spend your day? Memos from all CBS News staffers by Tuesday. The CBS News editor in chief, Barry Weiss, has asked each CBS News staffer to send her a memo by Tuesday that details their jobs and their opinions on the organization, according to Semaphore. It's a sign that she is eager to get the ball rolling on changing the news organization less than a week into her tenure. Weiss framed the directive as a move to get to know her employees better, described the newsroom as a big place with functional titles and reporting structures that I am learning, she wrote, that she is eager for staffers to share their ideas in their memo for how to make CBS News the most trusted and most consumed news source in the nation. I'm not looking for a JD or words like synergy, Weiss wrote. I want to understand how you spend your working days and ideally what you what you've made or are making that you are most proud of. I'm interested in hearing your views on what's working, what's broken or substandard, and how we can be better. Please be blunt. I will help. It will help me greatly. Start firing all the writers. You want help, Barry? Start firing all the people doing writing the stories. Start firing the vast majority of your reporters. Start firing them. Demand to see what they put out. If it's nothing but leftist drivel, I would go through the storylines and go out and say, okay, which storylines were actually important, which storylines were not important, and I would go and I would fire them. The people that are putting out stories that aren't stories, that are just opinion pieces designed to help the Democrat Party, and I would find out who's putting those out, who wrote those stories, and I would find out who the editors were, and I'd just start firing them for their inability to judge news correctly. There are a hit piece after a hit piece that have been put out by CBS News that have no basis of reality and were put out or talk about some, you know, inconsequential event and then tied immediately to, oh, anti-Trump this or anti-Trump that. Find those people, find out who set up there and editorialized it, and then get rid of them. It's that easy. Start demanding some accountability from these frauds. At least 4 killed and 12 hurt in Mississippi mass shooting after a homecoming football game in a small town. 4 people were killed and at least 12 others were injured when gunfire erupted in the wake of a Mississippi homecoming football game Friday night, officials said. The shooting occurred around midnight Saturday on Main Street in the small town of Leland, Mayor John Lee told CBS News. 4 of the wounded were airlifted to nearby hospitals, including Baptist Medical Center in Jackson, though officials could not disclose the status of their injuries. No suspects have been identified or taken into custody. According to Lee, the tragedy took place amidst the town's homecoming celebrations at midnight. A high school celebration at midnight. I think this stuff should have been closed down a long before then. All right, I'm just telling you. The Leland community had celebrated its homecoming football game earlier in the day at 7 p.m. Leland in Washington County has a population of about 3,500 people. Late Giants Super Bowl champion Johnny Cooks attended Leland High School before starring at Mississippi State and then being drafted number 2 overall by the then Baltimore Colts in 1982. The linebacker joined the Giants in 1998 and played for the franchise through the 1990 campaign, according to a contributor to the Super Bowl team that knocked off the Bills in January of 1991. Okay, nobody. He unfortunately died of a stroke, right, at the age of 61. Explain to me why this is going on. Don't you love how this has gotten out of control? No suspects were arrested. This is a small town. This was a small town party thing that was going on after hours. And I'm not stupid. I know that high school kids after hours, especially on a Friday where they don't have school the next day, are frickin' partying their asses off. But I suspect that this was nowhere near the school or anything else, okay? And that this was somewhere where a party was taking place and there was a fight and it got out of control. Ridley Scott says Hollywood is so drowning in mediocrity, he's been forced to watch his old films. From Deadline by Jake Cantor. Ridley Scott, a filmmaker not known for pulling his punches, has issued a withering assessment on the health of Hollywood's output right now. The Gladiator and Blade Runner director argue that the industry is drowning in mediocrity. So much so, Scott revealed that he has taken to rewatching his old films. Scott made the comments during an interview reflecting on his career at BFI South Bank in London on Saturday. Metro and Yahoo were among those reporting the Oscar nominated director's remarks. The quality of movies that were made today, literally globally, millions, all right? Not thousands, millions, and most of it is crap, he said, using the S word. All right. He added that the films are too often saved by digital effects because they haven't gotten a great thing on paper first. Asked as if he has a go-to comfort movie, the British director said, "Well, actually, right now I'm finding mediocrity. We're drowning in mediocrity." And so what I do, it's a horrible thing, but I've started watching my own movies, and actually they're pretty good. And also, they don't age. Uh, you smelling your own farts there, pal, huh? High on your own supply, are you? Look, dude, the problem is you guys became activists. You stopped trying to be storytellers as your primary mission and decided to be activists as your primary mission. The problem with the stories, in a sense, right? If you watch a story like Blade Runner, Blade Runner has timeless themes in it. Talk about Gladiator. Gladiator was an okay movie. It was an enjoyable movie to watch, but it wasn't a great movie. Right? And I want people to understand this. I did not find Gladiator to be a great movie, and anybody who thinks it was is out of their friggin' minds. But both had human themes at the root of what they're saying. They had human themes, and they had somewhat, all right, realistic portrayals of people. Bad guys, good guys, lunatics, and all in both of those movies. But there are people that were you could relate to these people. Some of them. Okay. This was the thing. You don't have that today. You don't have that today because they're too busy focused on lecturing and activism. Cops found inmate packing a thermos while being booked into a Florida County lockup. Surprise, surprise! On drug and trespassing charges. Walter Freimeyer, passed through an X-ray machine that jailers use to thwart attempts at smuggling contraband. While Freimeyer, 51, was not found to have stashed weapons or narcotics on his person, he was still packing, as can be seen in the adjacent image. Freimeyer went through a body scanner. Corrections workers spotted a full-sized thermos in the detainee's body. My God. Oh, sadly, the police reports do not include the manufacturer or dimension of the thermos, which entered Freimeyer's body a day earlier via the exit ramp, according to the Polk County Sheriff Grady Judd. Freimeyer, who has a sprawling criminal record, was busted Saturday evening for trespassing on Amtrak property, all right, in Winter Haven. A frisk turned up a glass pipe with burned residue consistent with methamphetamine. The thermos was removed from Freimeyer's rectum at a local hospital. He was not charged with seeking to smuggle prohibited items into jail. He is locked up in lieu of $12,000 bond on 2 felony and 2 misdemeanor counts. While being transported to jail, Freimeyer allegedly warned the officers, "If you arrest me, I will find you and I will kill you." He told it was illegal to make such a threat. Freimeyer, cop said, replied, "Good, I'm going to kill you, so charge it." Luigi Mangioni's lawyers seek dismissal of federal charges in assassination of the United Healthcare CEO. Lawyers for Luigi, all right, asked a New York federal judge Saturday to dismiss some of the criminal charges, including the only count for which he could be faced a death penalty from a federal indictment brought against him in December assassination of the United Healthcare's chief executive. In papers filed in Manhattan federal court, the lawyers said that prosecutors should also be able or be prevented from using at the trial his statements to law enforcement officers and his backpack where a gun and ammunition were found. We're trying to stop everything. The judge should not even entertain this idea. The judge should have simply said, "Show me this." Okay, this is, and then ruled immediately, summarily just throwing it out. All right, let's be perfectly frank. This judge here is a problem for not doing that. I don't know who the judge is, and I don't care if he's a Democrat or a Republican or what he is. I really don't know. But if you took this action seriously, you're out of your mind. They added that the war officers did not obtain a warrant before searching his backpack. He was not read his rights before he was questioned by law enforcement officers who arrested him after Brian Thompson was shot as he arrived at a Manhattan hotel for an investors conference. He has pled not guilty to state and federal charges in the fatal shooting. These people need to be gone. The judge, any judge who sits up there and takes these considerations seriously, isn't a judge. You can't take these kind of actions seriously from these people. Without, he should have summarily dismissed these claims. Should have summarily dismissed them. Well, you got to read the rights. You got the Miranda. Hey, I've said for freaking decades I have said on the thing. Miranda is one of the worst rulings by SCOTUS ever. Miranda is is the start of massive judicial activism that needs to end. It's not sustainable to sit up there and have a concept of ignorance of the law is not an excuse, but ignorance of the law of the land, your rights under the Constitution, is. That's nonsense. Interstellar object is spraying something weird, scientists find. A new analysis of our solar system's interstellar interloper, Atlas, I'm just going to call it 3i Atlas, okay, revealed that it's spewing huge amounts of water. Really? This is what you're saying? Comets which spew water all the time? The object, which is widely believed to be a comet, showed strong ultraviolet emissions that are unmistakable telltales of hydroxyl gas, OH, a byproduct of water when astronomers imaged it with the NASA Niels Gehrer's Swift Space Telescope before it disappeared behind the sun. The emissions could only be spotted from space because the ultraviolet light would be absorbed in the atmosphere. Their findings, detailed in a new study published in Astrophysical Journal Letters, argue that the presence of all this OH indicates that the comet is ejecting water vapor at a torrential rate of about 88 pounds per second, which is around the same rate as a fire hose running at full blast, according to a press release about the findings. The most extraordinary thing is that it was spotted happening pretty far away from the sun at a heliocentric distance of about 3 AU away, or 3 times the distance between the Earth and our star. Typically, comets stray much closer to the sun before water ice at their core, called a nucleus, begins to sublimate or instantly transform from a solid to a gas. Something else must be driving the water dumping 3i Atlas, all right, which implies tantalizingly that the comet must harbor considerable stores of water for this process to keep ongoing. It's water, folks. It's water. It's a comet, and it's spewing water. Nothing surprising about that. Okay, final stories of the day. A struggling jaguar rescued from a Brazilian river. We will take a look at this right now. There's a jaguar there being rescued from the river. Look at the claws on that thing. You got they got it in the little raft. Notice how they're not bringing it aboard. Not that I blame them, okay? Not that I blame them. I would not bring this thing aboard either, to be quite frank with you. All right. To be quite frank, I would not bring that in either because these things are dangerous. All righty. Jaguar seen struggling to swim in a Brazilian river was rescued by authorities and taken to a veterinary clinic where it was treated for a gunshot wound. Military police and wildlife experts created an improvised flotation device. All right. When the feline was seen struggling in the water of the Rio Negro near Ponta Negra Beach. The video shows the big cat being towed back to shore where the jaguar was taken to a specialized veterinary clinic to be examined. The veterinarians found the jaguar had been shot and had a bullet fragments under its skin. The big cat, and it was big, underwent surgery and is now recovering before eventually being returned to the wild. I would never return this animal to the wild. Okay? I understand people's concerns. Okay? But this is a large predator that has been wounded by humans and then helped by humans. It's not going to be afraid of humans, but it probably still remembers being wounded by them, and you're risking the lives of human beings by releasing this animal back into the wild. Just my opinion. Authorities said they have opened an investigation into who shot the jaguar, as the big cats are a protected species in Brazil. I'm glad that they helped the animal, right? Obviously, all right. It is something that I think taking care of animals and so forth is something that we should be doing. All right. I'm not as quote unquote pro animal as many people are, like PETA. I don't think animals are human beings. All right. I think people overreact sometimes to animals and actions. Animals are not human beings. Okay. And I'm not saying that animals should be allowed to be abused, but my definition of abuse is far looser than many people's. Because there are idiots running around that say you can't spank a human being because that's abuse. It's the start of that nonsense. It is. But at the same time, you want to protect the species because jaguars are endangered, and they are. I'm all for it. But releasing such an animal into the wild, I have reservations because they have been known to kill and target human beings. Would it surprise me if that was the case with this animal? The answer is no. Monkey on the loose! Loose monkey lured with a hot cup of coffee in Carolina. A South Carolina clerk teamed up with a local mayor and a hot cup of coffee to capture a spider monkey spotted running loose through the town. Casey Hill, town clerk of Etwaville, Orangeburg County, in Etwaville, Orangeburg County, said she was helping out the Etowaville Crappy Classic and Fall Fest on Saturday when she heard rumors of a monkey running loose through the town. The rumors were backed up by photos, right, and posted by witnesses on social media. Hill linked up with Mayor Brandon Weatherford and his wife Laura, and the trio headed to the area of the last reported monkey sighting near the Twirl restaurant. Sure enough, she was hanging on the back of a vehicle by a barber shop. The primate, who was dragging her own leash, all right, next headed to the First National Bank, probably to make a withdrawal. She was hollering. You could tell she was scared. Hill decided to try an experiment. She placed a cup of hot coffee on the ground, removed the lid, and took a step back. The monkey came over to investigate the steaming beverage, allowing Hill and others to step on the leash. Obviously, this was a bad monkey. It was on the list. Hill said that the monkey was claimed shortly after by a woman who had identified the simian as her pet named Ava. Spider monkeys are native to forests of Central and South America, where they are currently legal to own in South Carolina with a permit, but a bill filed by the current state legislative sessions would require all pet primates in the state to be registered. Um, I'm not a fan of pet monkeys. Okay, they. I'm not saying people shouldn't have pets, but some people, all right, have to understand that you have to understand that some pets shouldn't. People shouldn't have certain pets. Monkeys are one of them. Right? Monkeys are. I'm not saying that they're human beings, but they are very difficult to keep as pets. You need a lot to take care of them. And this woman thinking it's an okay thing to put a monkey on a leash and take it into public, that's a mistake. Okay, that you should never make with any primate. Just my opinion. Final story. Mystery cow found wandering loose on Pennsylvania highway. was successfully roped by a man on horseback, but the bullfine's origins remain unknown. A cow held up traffic Wednesday when it was spotted on the median of Interstate 79 near Cranberry Township in Evans City in Butler County. Local farrier Kyle Carson heard about the situation and offered his services to local authorities. He responded to the scene with his horse, aptly named Highway. The crews there had traffic stopped, and we sat there for a little bit and just assessed the situation, let the cow relax a little more, and just hang out. And then I just rode up there, roped her, and then took her back over to the trailer. The Pennsylvania State Police said they checked with local farmers, but the cow's origins are a mystery. The animal was taken to a local farm to receive veterinary care while authorities attempt to determine where it came from. Cowboys on the highway! Looking for everything. Cowboy on the highway. Oh, my goodness. My goodness me. That's a good story. The animal was roped in and successfully brought in from an interstate, which is the fact that they blocked out an interstate for a long period of time, for any period of time. I mean, it's quite aggressive, quite aggressive. I bet all sorts of things were backed up big time around that interstate. All right, folks, that's all I've got for the day. I hope that you all have a good day. Thanks for coming out. Enjoy, and I hope you enjoyed the show. Have a good day.